Welcome back to Empower Yourself. Today we will learn about the principles of auditing and roles of auditor. Principles of auditing. An auditor must have some of the principles that need to be followed during the audit so that it will be helpful for the auditor to perform well and make sure that the audit is successful. Let us see some of the principles that need to be followed during the audit. Ethical conduct. So, for any auditor, he or she must have some ethical conduct, which means that the auditor must be confidential and he need to have the understanding to go deep into the situation or any observation that is observed during the audit. So confidentiality and discretion are essential to auditing. Fair presentation. So the auditor must have the fair presentation. That means the obligation to report truthfully and accurately. So whatever the observation that is being observed by the auditor should be truthful and it has to be accurate. Due professional care. The application of diligence and judgment in auditing. So the auditor must have a good knowledge and the auditor should be uh, in a position that he is able to judge the condition or judge the situation in a proper way that will be helpful in the professional activities. Independence, the basis for impartiality of the audit and objectivity of the audit conclusion. So the auditor must be independent, that he has to bring the observations or he or she has the ability to make the audit conclusion, uh, maintaining all the principles and all the regulations during the audit. Evidence-based approach, the rational method for reaching reliable and reproducible audit conclusions in a systematic audit process. So, the observations that are made during the audit should be the evidence. That means it has to be linked with the regulatory requirements so that it will be helpful that the particular organizations are meeting the requirements of the regulatories. So the auditor must have the evidence. He has to show the evidence that this is why this observation is made. So these all principles has to be followed by the auditor during the audit. So these are the essential principles for any auditor to follow. That is ethical conduct, fair presentation, due professional care, independence, evidence-based approach. So all this has to be included by the auditor to make sure that the audit is successful and it is in a systematic procedure. Here comes the role of auditor. So what are the roles and requirements that an auditor need to follow and how can he or she may become the auditor? Let us see them. There are two necessary components for an audit to be successful. So the first component is that the first is an auditor with the right skill, education, and experience. So whoever is auditing a particular company or a particular organization, the auditor must have the right skills and he has to have the education as well as the experience. So these are the first and uh, foremost thing that an auditor need to has. So without knowledge, without skill, he cannot judge any observation in a proper way and an evidence based approach. So to have all those things, he need to have the right skill as well as the education and experience too. Next, the second is the audit process itself. So how the audit process has to be, how it has to follow, what is the systematic way the audit has to be made, and how it has to be concluded. So these two are the main important things the auditor need to follow, and the auditor need to have them with the person. So the auditor is a key component of the audit. So everything depends upon the auditor, how the audit goes, what are the documents that are required, and how, what is the procedure, what is the agenda that need to be followed, depends upon the auditor. So to increase the effectiveness of the audit, the auditor must have good auditing practices and techniques that will allow the auditor to easily access information about the process, facility, or the product being audited. So the auditor must have good auditing practices as well as the techniques. So based upon those practices and techniques, the auditor will be accessed easily for getting the information knowledge about the process as well as the facility that is being audited, as well as build a respectful relationship with the auditor. So it is the auditor responsibility to build a respectful relationship with the auditor. Quickly determine the necessary information to conduct an efficient audit. So during the audit, he needs to have a quick judgment. That means he need to be proactive to get the information to conduct an efficient audit. During the audit, the auditor has some of the other duties as well that he need to or she need to follow. Let us see them in detail. So auditor duties includes interviewing or questioning. So to get the information related to some of the observations made, or to get to a clear conclusion or clear judgment, the auditor has to interview as well as question. The auditor need to have listening techniques. So auditor should be able to listen carefully to all the information that is being provided by the auditee and analysis information and data. So after getting all the information, or after looking into the document that is being provided by the auditee, the auditor has to analyze the information as well as the data provided by the auditor, and based upon all these things, he could get to the proper conclusion or proper judgment. So auditor's duty is that he need to interview as well as question. He has to or she has to listen carefully as well as analyze information and data. In summary, the auditor should demonstrate the 5 P's. So these 5 P's need to be included. That means it has to be within the auditor. That is polite, prepared, professional, patient, persistent. So all these 5 P's has to be there within the auditor to be an auditor as well. So during the audit, the auditor has to demonstrate politeness. So he has to be very polite to get all the information, and he has to be prepared. That means what is his agenda, what is his ideas to conduct this audit, and what is the basic principle that or she wanted to get from this audit, as well as he has to maintain the professional ethics. That means he should not be out of the profession. He should be in the profession to get all the answers, and the auditor has to be patient as well as persistent. That means we need to have patience as well as we need to be persistent. That means we need to be consistent to get all the information that is required during the audit. I hope this has been helpful to you, and uh, it is a good information that is being given to you. These are some of the principles as well as some of the rules and responsibilities that an auditor need to follow during any audit in an organization. Thanks for watching and learning.